True story, why I had to run away. It was 5 o'clock in the morning, and I was tired as all hell. I had just finished having a 6-hour fight with my mom that ended in me throwing her against a wall after she tried hitting me in the face with a broom. "I'm calling you daddy, bitch," she said 5 seconds after her head hit the wall. That phrase meant that I would have to live with my dad, who she thought was more hellish than her. Although this was the first time any of our fights have gotten physical, and the first time I hit her back, this wasn't the first time she threatened to call my father. This seemed to be the pattern. She would go too far in one of her infamous tantrums, it would become too much for one person me to deal with. I would call my father, he would come to get me, after a few months of being happily away from her. She would call Child Protective Services and remind them that she still had full custody, then off again I went to deal with her pill-induced rages. This happened more times than I care to admit. The few times the police were called and our living conditions were investigated, she would always get her way. In everyone's eyes, I was a disrespectful teenager who needed to learn his place in the world. In contrast, she was seen as a single mother who was trying to do the best for her child. It didn't help that I was black either, and every police officer my mom called treated me as such. "Get your ass back in the house. You should be happy she's trying," the police officers would say, but she wasn't trying, she was unemployed and happily consumed the pills she couldn't sell. The police wouldn't even come inside the house. Every time they came, my mom made sure to meet them outside so they wouldn't see the filth that had taken over our home. Anyway, back to the story. After the fight, I tried to calm my nerves. I knew the next day would consist of more fights, more drama, and a ton of lectures from adults who had no idea what they were talking about. Not a minute after I laid down, I heard the voice that caused me time and time again to go out of character. My mother's voice. Echoes of exaggerated mhhhms and yes were being yelled from the next room. She was cackling and laughing with her equally annoying best friend, Reginald. From what I gathered, she said how she was going to walk into my room, throw a duffel bag at my head, and tell me to get the F out of her house. She had taken everything from me, but I refused to let her take my dignity and unpreparedly put me out on the street. I packed a bag as quietly as I could, tiptoed down the hallway and silently unlocked the door to leave. I was off into the night. I didn't know the neighborhood all that well, this was our 5th apartment within the last 3 years, so after the 3rd one, I just stopped bothering to learn routes altogether. I walked around aimlessly for about 4 blocks, I didn't care where I was going, just as long as I got away from that apartment. I was using the time to think of what would happen the next day, when what seemed out of nowhere, a man popped up from down the sidewalk. I gave out an involuntary what the fuck and took a step back. I didn't know if he was trying to purposely scare me, or if he was just a homeless person about to ask for money. He had a long beard, a bald spot I could see from a mile away and a brown paper bag. I recovered myself, I couldn't afford to look scared in a neighborhood like this. I lowered my head and turned around to find another route, but tripped in the process, spilling all remnants out my bag. I tried to gather all my stuff that fell, but the guy was getting antsy, coming closer and closer. I was only able to gather my iPad and a pair of underwear before I decided fuck it and ran off as fast as I could. The street was dark and I felt my contacts falling out. You never know how truly cold the world is until you're caught without a jacket. I ran a full block before I had to catch my breath. I was tired, crying, furious, alone and scared. I couldn't do this anymore. I decided to turn back and go home when the same man, who I thought I outran, started limping towards me. He looked tired too but determined to catch me. "What the fuck do you want, old man?" I thought. I could see the sun starting to rise. I thought maybe if I just kept running, I would eventually find a police officer to help get me back home, but that was a useless idea. They would see a sweaty, black teenager running down the street holding an iPad. What if they thought I stole it? What if they actually believed my story, but put me in jail anyway for running away? In the middle of running for my life, I heard the most southern voice any man could have, "You're an A's boy, right?" I stopped dead in my tracks and turned my head around, making sure to keep my distance. Why does my mom have to know everyone in this town? I thought. "Yay," I said, trying to muster some kind of authority in my already shaking voice. "Why you out here?" he said, slowly approaching me more and more. With every step he took forward, I made sure to take 2 steps back. "She knows you out here?" he asked. I don't know why I responded, I don't know why I didn't just keep running. "Nah," I said, trying to match his accent and obvious illiteracy. He zipped down his fly and said, "She ain't gotta know either. Dot. Remember earlier when I said my mom sold pills? Well, a horrid epiphany crossed my mind. He wasn't one of my mom's friends, he was one of her customers. A grin started to spread across his face that still haunts me to this day. His eyes were a jaundiced yellow, almost cat-like. I've never seen eyes that looked so hungry. "You help me out, I help you out," he said, still slowly approaching me. "Get the fuck away from me." I yelled as loudly as I could. With what little energy I had, I turned away, preparing to run again. I hadn't even made it 3 feet before I heard sirens blaring from around the corner. The bearded man took off. After seeing him run, I had another terrible realization. He could have caught me at any time. Hell, he was a lot faster than I was. Who knows how long he was watching me before he popped up from around that corner. The police brought me back to my mom's house, completely ignoring my warning about the homeless pedophile. Most of my predictions came true. My mom was the one who called the police. The officer said they'd been looking for me for almost 4 hours, 30 more minutes, and they would have had to issue an Amber Alert. I was sent away to live with my dad for 3 months. It was pretty chilly and a lot more calming than I was used to. My mom got arrested shortly after. I still don't know what for, but my guess is she tried to cheat the wrong person out of their pills. I'm 20 years old now, and I still think about that homeless man's surreal grin and how far I would have got had it not been for those sirens.
Stop. It ends when I say it ends. Now, be a nice human and scroll down and hit the like button. And if you are not subscribed yet, subscribe now. Thanks for watching.